What's going on, Imperials? It's Emperor Cubone here. Becoming a gym leader is a great honor in the Pokémon world, but they are also a complicated bunch. We used to not know very much about them, but we've gotten more glimpses over the years into their personalities and also their past, which got me thinking. We know that they couldn't have always been a gym leader. We see gyms change hands numerous times in the games themselves, but they were all still Pokemon trainers before becoming those leaders, which begs the question, what were their trainer classes before they were the gym leaders? Some of these are obvious and explicitly told to us players, like in Unova when Bryson is said to be a movie star. However, that's not good enough. Because if Black and White 2 didn't give us Pokestar Studios, we wouldn't have gotten an official trainer class of movie star to apply to Bryson or any number of other showbiz labels. So in only looking at the actual trainer classes across all of the games, can we reasonably determine what all of the gym leaders might have been in canon? We'll start with Brock, since he's a simple enough guy who likes rock-type Pokemon, so he shouldn't be that hard to place as a hiker before his tenure at the Pewter City Gym, since this is a class notorious for its rock-type usage. Now, you might say that his culinary skills or something else should be taken into account, but that's strictly from the anime, so we will not be crossing the streams of continuity. However, I do think Grant from Kalos would also be a believable hiker. His main thing is rock climbing, but that doesn't really have a class devoted to scaling a cliff face like that, so hiking might be the closest allegory to checking it off, and luckily he already uses rock types as well. But leaders can share previous classes even if they approach them differently. I mean, just take a look at Lana and Marlin. They were clearly both the fisherman trainer class, even if Lana uses a traditional fishing pole, and Marlin just dives in to use a net with his bare hands like he's in the 1st century. But while we're on water-type specialists, we might as well touch on Misty, who I think would pretty clearly be classified as a swimmer. She's still young, so not much time to be anything else. I mean, other than a preschooler class, I guess, but that could literally be every gym leader out there. However, I do think that Nessa from the Galar region would also be a swimmer class before getting promoted to gym leader. However, not all water-type gym leaders are so predictable, because we have Wallace, who is a man of many hobbies, including, sometimes, Pokemon contests, which means that he is in fact a Pokemon coordinator. He might actually be able to make contests cool again. His mentor Juan is a little harder to pin down because we know so much less about him, nor even what his career path might have been, but at the very least he could have been the Sutapolitan trainer class. Yes, that's a real thing for trainers who live in the crater city of Hoenn, but I think it might be better and in fact safer to say that Juan could possibly be a veteran trainer. Which does lead me to Lieutenant Surge. Despite knowing his past as a soldier, that was scrapped as an actual trainer class. So what could he have been classified as by the League? Even though I know it means something different, being a combat veteran would fall into the more experienced purview of the veteran class, and let Surge have an official designation besides just his rank of lieutenant. But now for something easier, like Erica being an aroma lady. I mean, this one pretty much writes itself, since she's always surrounded by flowers, even wearing them in her outfits, with aroma ladies using grass types frequently in her gyms and hanging around. I think it fits her pretty perfectly. And then there are other grass users that are even more defined, like the newest one, Brassius, who is an artist, making most of the sculptures around Artisan. They're not really my taste, but he seems to be doing well for himself, and Artist is an actual trainer class, so we're good. However, there is also Berg, who is an artist, just a different kind, but that would still fit within the class established, so the Unova Bug Trainer could also share the same title as the Paldean Grass one. Also, Mina from Alola might fit here too, but we could actually get a bit more specific with the Painter class, which has kind of been folded into the Artist category, but painting does still encapsulate Mina's style. And then of course there's Mallow, who's also in Alola. The trial captains are not gym leaders, but they're still worth talking about, and she is known for her culinary skills as a master chef. There is the cook trainer class, but I think the actual chef trainer class will do, mostly because this fits other leaders too, like Kofu in Paldea, being renowned for his expert food preparation. I could also see this on the Striaton Brothers trio as well, but if they didn't make it quite that far yet, there is also the waiter trainer class as a perfect entry point for their careers, so surely they would have been a waiter at some point. Some gym leaders are so specialized that there's no other choice for them, like Koga, who pretty much has to be a Ninja Boy trainer class. The Japanese name is actually Make-Believe Ninja, but if you practice something long enough, you can actually make it happen. And his immediate peer is just as easy, with Sabrina being a clear candidate for the Psychic Trainer class. Now, she could believably be a tamer class with the whip and all, but her telepathy is more than enough to cement her psychic status. The Psychic moniker also fits other leaders like Olympia and the twins Liza and Tate, although it is worth noting that there is the twins trainer class, but I think floating things with their ESP power better fits these leaders. And after that, the only other Psychic type specialist is Tulip from Paldea, but I think it's safe to say that she would be the classic beauty class since she is famous for her good looks. Also, Fantina in Sinnoh could probably be a beauty class as well, or it could be fun for her to be a tourist trainer class since she is from another region, or I guess she could also be a coordinator technically since she does contests, but I think beauty best suits her personality more. However, the predecessor class to the beauties are the lasses, and some of the younger leaders do fit here, like Whitney probably couldn't have been much of anything else, and Iris also seems a little too young to have anything else going on other than a lass. Perhaps she could be a dragon tamer like her mentor Drayden definitely is, but Candace from Sinnoh seems quite likely to be a lass, although perhaps she could be a schoolgirl given her outfit. And then I also think Jasmine could be a lass category as well, but given her attachment to the Ampharos and the Lighthouse, it could be possible that she was a member of the Pokefan class. This is a slightly less obsessed version of the Pokemaniac, where people just wholesomely like Pokemon a whole lot. And I feel like this matches up with the fans that are in her gym that don't battle you, so Jasmine being a fan just seems to work. This is also the only class that I could see Norman fitting into. Out of all of them, he seems to be the most prominent of a professional gym leader, but assuming that he didn't just begin life as one, I think being a Pokefan would suit Norman just fine. But while we're looking at Hoenn, I think Brawley is easy enough to classify as a black belt. An argument could be made for him to be a surfer class, but given the fighting type specialty in his gym, it seems like it's a no-brainer. And if you think that he would be too young for that, then Chuck from Johto would easily be able to handle earning that black belt before becoming a gym leader. And there is also the female alternative for this class being the Battle Girl title, who I would apply to Maylene from the Sinnoh region, and also Bee from Galar. These fighting girls already look like they've borrowed some of their style from this class anyway. Another easy pick would be Bugsy, who we can confidently say used to be a bug catcher. Probably not a bug maniac, but he still got the net to prove it. And also, I might have given this to Viola and Kalos, however we only just got a much better option in the Teal Mask since Perrin introduced the Photographer Trainer class. It's shocking that it took until 2023 when we've had multiple Pokemon Snap games, but that trainer class can retroactively be applied to Viola perfectly. Then, like Bugsy, we have Faulkner, who is just as easy to slot into the Birdkeeper category, since he's all about that flying type after all, and this would probably translate over to Winona from Hoenn without much of a problem as well. However, Skyla, despite being another flying specialist, has a bit more going on and would have the Pilot Trainer class prior to being a gym leader, though she does look a little young to be that experienced, so if you do fly in her plane, just hold on tight. But her good friend Elisa also has an obvious title with the Model Trainer class. This wasn't introduced until much later, but her runway fashion shows spell it out pretty plainly for everybody. And going down the region, we can see the late edition Roxy, who appropriately would easily be a guitarist class before ruling her gym. She really never stopped with it after all, and this class could also be applied to Piers in the Galar region, although one could argue for him to have also been a member of the Punk class instead. In this vein, there's also Rhyme, but she isn't really in the same genre of music, they're more of a rapper, so instead we'll just give her the Musician Trainer class, since the Galar models for this category seem to be in that same world as well. Now, despite her affiliation with Mega Evolution, I think it's safe to say that Corina would have been officially recognized as a roller skater trainer class, which can't really be found anywhere besides Kalos anyway. But if we go sequentially to the next gym with Ramos, we could easily classify him as a Gardener class, which surprisingly wasn't introduced until Generation 6 along with Ramos. But the Gardener class could also be given back to the Sinnoh grass specialist Gardenia. And not just because of her name, but it actually fits her role in the community. Whereas in Galar, Milo doesn't seem to fit in all that much because he's more of a shepherd, but that's not a class. So he could be a breeder, but I actually think that the Rancher Trainer class could make a surprise appearance to fit Milo quite nicely. And it may not be expected, but the Rancher class could also actually suit one other leader with Wulfric. I was honestly having trouble nailing down something for Wulfric, but given his stewardship over the nearby Pokémon village and his notably kind and gentle demeanor with his Pokémon, I think it works. Bet you never expected a Rancher to use ice types, huh? If we see Acerola, I think it's pretty clear that she used to be a Hex Maniac with her use of Ghost-type Pokémon and her crazy eyes, after all. And this could potentially cover Alistair as well, but I'd like to come back to that because I want to look at Morty first. This laid-back guy doesn't seem quite worked up enough to be a Hex Maniac, so it may sound strange, but I think perhaps Morty could actually be a medium. It might be odd because they're usually characterized as old women, but Morty is said to be able to see the future, so perhaps mediums exclusively staffing his gym is no accident. Similarly, I think Alistair could be classified as a medium, since he sees and hears ghosts all the time, but he doesn't seem all that thrilled about it like a maniac would be, so I think it blends with his personality better. Also, just past him in Ballinley, we would find Opal, who probably would be an actress trainer class, but for the theater, since her whole gym challenge is mocked up like a stage play. And also, I don't know how we made it this far without bringing up Katie from Scarlet and Violet, but she's obviously the Baker class. Yeah, that one's just plain as day, she still got the outfit and everything. But speaking of outfits, Valerie from X and Y was in all likelihood a fairy tale girl, one of the new specialists for the fairy type. Or I suppose she could have been a Furisode girl too if she had been a little older when tapped for the role. Now, looking at Flannery, I think she could have been a member of the Kindler class who largely use fire types, so it would fit her style, but this could also be applied to Kabu as well, who likewise shares a fiery passion. And even if Kindlers are a Hoenn exclusive thing, Kabu is actually from the Hoenn region originally, so it does fit. I did consider Kiawe for this class as well, but I think the Fire Breather category might suit his antics better. Or if that doesn't work, then perhaps the humble Dancer Trainer class would be a broad enough tent to cover him and his blazing Marowak. On the opposite end, we have Grusha, who canonically used to be a professional snowboarder, so the Boarder Trainer class would be on their official trainer ID. But despite having those in the Mahogany Gym, I don't think Price would be that good on a board. I do think perhaps that he could have been a skier class though, who are also present in his gym, and Price also carries around a cane, so maybe that could be a callback to his frequent use of ski poles? Or if nothing else, I guess he could just be the Icy Guy class from Battle Revolution. And speaking of old guys, we maybe could have put Crasher Wake in some other water categories. I think a good argument could be made for the Sailor class of some kind, but once Alola rolled out the Pro Wrestler Trainer class, everything became clear. I wonder if he ever faced off against the Masked Royal, whoever he is. But this is where things start to become a bit difficult, like with Iono. She's an internet influencer, and they certainly don't have a trainer class for that. So the best allegory that I could find after combing through was maybe the Idol class. Now, I know that this is a bit different and it's more of a pop star thing, but Iono still has the ravenous fans. So I would say that she could have crossover appeal enough to reach that Idol status, and hey, maybe she sings too, who knows? But then, like Clay, for instance. We know that he's a businessman, he's clearly got a briefcase after all, but we don't know what business that is. Actually, we do know that he owns a mine, but there's no minor trainer class. However, given his playing in the dirt and the fact that they claim he came up from nothing, I'm inclined to say that he started as a Ruin Maniac. These are some of the few ground-type specialists, and they line up with Clay's interests, so it seems quite likely. And you'll have to bear with me here, but this could also technically apply to Lenora as well, since the museum does call her an archaeologist, which is what the Ruin Maniacs are. Ideally, I could just call her a curator or a librarian, but there are no such classes officially recognized by the Pokémon League. However, there is one alternative: the Proprietor Trainer class. Now, the only use of this class was quite different to include inverse battles, but the word proprietor means owner of a business, so the fact that she's in charge of the whole museum/gym setup can still be represented. Also, as we touched on with Clay not having a minor class available, that makes it harder for Rourke to be properly covered since he's the foreman of a mine. He could technically be the successor class since he did take over that position from his father, but I think perhaps the standard worker class could fit. This category has covered multiple blue-collar jobs over the years, with a miner arguably being one of them, so that should work for Rourke and his father Byron for their previous classes of manual labor. Likewise, Blaine has done plenty of things in his past, more prominently than just some fire-themed ones, but I think that we could get away with the Scientist Trainer class. After all, he is connected to the Cinnabar lab for fossil resurrections, and he did work with Mr. Fuji, so I think Scientist is nondescript enough to work. This would likely cover Watson as well, because he is not only responsible for all the machinery in his gym, but he is constantly tinkering with New Mauville or C Mauville, and there is no Inventor class outright, otherwise we would have something to give Clement, who also creates mechanized inventions all the time, so I suppose that we could call him a scientist too. Maybe Sophocles could be squeezed in there as well, but I actually think that he would be better suited as a super nerd. This was a class from Gen 1, but they were also shown to toy with machines, and I think the young Master Sophocles would likely land this more enthusiastic role. Roxanne from Hoenn could have been a lass like some of the others, but I actually think she may be better in the student category. She seems to have the uniform, and she's so young but clearly excelling at the top of her class, so then again, maybe the Rising Star category would be more apt, since it is the predecessor to the Ace Trainer class. And actually, we can apply this to Gordy as well from Galar, because his league card says that he was once a Rising Star. Is that cheating? Perhaps so, but this leads us to his mom, Melanie, who is much harder. However, she is said to educate other trainers in the way of battling, so perhaps she could have been a coach trainer? I know that we've only seen them in the Let's Go games, but she does coach people to be trainers, so I think that it could fit this mature matriarch. There's also Ilima, who's a bit of an enigma all his own, and his previous employment status is just as perplexing. However, I think we could try the instructor class. It may have been introduced with far different intentions, but Ilima does instruct even younger trainers in the ways of Pokémon, sometimes at the trainer school itself, so that could very likely be the title that Ilima used to hold before Trial Captain. And honestly, Volkner kind of stumped me, but accounting for his advanced skill to the point of being bored at everyone else's mediocrity, I think it's very possible that he could have been an ace trainer. These are usually the only NPCs even approaching the level of player characters as far as team composition and strategy, so Volkner could have easily ended up here along with the fellow gym leader Raihan. Raihan is perhaps another of the few perpetual gym leaders, but he's very clearly got what it takes to bring the ace level of battling. Larry is also kind of hard to place because he's another generic businessman with no defined role, and while I could see him as the sort of plain gentleman class, I would say the boss category could work. In theory, this would just be a basic employer, but in practice, it's been used to represent Giovanni as the leader of Team Rocket. Later, it was changed to the Team Rocket boss category, but I still think the regular boss title could fit these very different professionals in their respective work environments. And finally, we have Claire, the last gym leader in Johto. And stick with me here, but I think it's possible that this mysterious dragon trainer would not be a tamer or anything so mundane, but rather be a member of the Lorekeeper class. This was only ever used in battle against Xenia, but it has a deeper implication of being tied to the Draconid peoples and the history of their stories. So perhaps the Dragon's Den is an offshoot of those Draconids, and Claire's deep family ties make her a Lorekeeper in that secret society. Maybe not, but I could totally see this being a thing. So, those are likely outcomes of what every gym leader's trainer class would have been before they actually got promoted to gym leader. Which trainer classes do you think all of the gym leaders used to be? Let me know down in the comments. Also be sure to leave a like, share this video, and subscribe so that you too can become an Imperial today. And until next time, stay grounded.